my favorite quote. I say it all the time. It's like, don't tell me what's most important. Show me your calendar and your
Yeah,
checkbook, and I'll tell you what's most important.
yeah,
But the question is, what do you value? So if you really value the work that you're doing now, lean into that. But if you like can't see yourself doing the things you're doing in your day to day, it makes you got to make some changes.
yes,
And that's the hard part is the
yeah,
change part. Making changes can be difficult, but that's when other people, I think, like we've thrown out some ideas. Planning is huge,
yeah.
having a plan. But I think the other people around you is maybe even equal, if not more important. You had some people in your life that were like throwing in some influence, like life coach kind of
Yeah.
people and friends and like in mentors and some people around you. That's like a huge thing because then
Yes.
they open your mind up to the
Yes.
possibilities.
Yeah. For me, freedom is probably the core value. I want to just feel free. I know
Right.
none of us are like free, but I like to intentionally create so many freedoms. Freedom of time, freedom to work from anywhere,
Hmm.
freedom to take a day off if I want to. On a short note, just tell them, hey, I'm out today, if anything. So I really think that was one of the which I could just never get when I was employed. So that's why I got so overwhelmed, so much pressure on me. I don't think there was pressure. It was just like it was not aligned
Hmm.
because I could never feel free. My time was already committed to my employer, and those were very extended hours of work and
Hmm.
so much commitment that when I came home, I was so empty that I just never felt free at all.
Yeah, and it drains you. So if freedom is a value and family is a value and
Mhm.
those sorts of things, it's important to clarify those things. A lot of times we don't quite keep that top of mind, but when you put that top of mind and then you start to run everything through the lens of like,
None of those
how am
values.
I doing in relation? So then if you look at your job and you're like, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like nada, like
That
nothing,
that's the thing, and then
or you're like,
that's what happened to me too. I like, it just doesn't meet. It was just meeting the need of like, okay, it was just exchanging that time for the income.
right,
And then
right.
was there any
Then you're
other
doing
way
it
I
for the
can make
money,
income? Yeah, eventually it came down to that. Because
right?
all that passion and serving why I went into medicine, eventually in the end, the passion was gone because hours were brutal. And then in the end, I was like, but I can't leave because this is the only skill I have. I don't have any other skill to make money.
Right,
And
and
that's
then you
where
feel
I kind of
stuck.
felt too. But I was like, wow, this is just not aligned to my values. Even though
Mhm,
sometimes when I think right now, wow, I've left medicine and I'm not going back, that just
mhm,
seems like, but I'm like, gosh, but I'm free now.
mhm.
I'm living the life which I want.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's much more gratifying, even if you weren't doing better or worse financially.
Right,
That's
right.
the thing, like, ideally, you make finances a non-issue, like, they
Right.
just do their
Yeah.
thing, but the key is, like, living the good life, and I think I see a lot of times in medicine too, people struggle with their values and the values that are forced on them
Yep.
from the system of medicine I'm talking about. If you say, for example, like your professional values are like to take the best care of the patient possible
Yeah.
and give them the time necessary to do that
Mhm.
and be cordial and have a relationship. And
Right.
those are common things that people
And
say.
even friends and family members, because they have like, "Oh, you worked so hard, you're a physician." I really felt a little bit of that as well. But thankfully, my parents are back in India. They're not here in town, like telling me these things. But yeah, there was that as well. They're like, "Oh, so you're not doing that anymore?"
Oh,
Like,
in that
yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. There's so much pressure to stay in the
Yeah.
status quo and do it because that's how it's always been done.
Yeah.
But you got to lean on what's most important to you.
Yeah.
And nobody knows, people don't understand what's actually happening behind the scenes. And the fact that maybe a place you're working at is in complete conflict with what's most important to you. But
Mhm.
like, if you like subject yourself to living in the condition of like complete conflict with your values, at work, I think that's like the number one cause of burnout. I mean, like
Oh my
there's all
gosh,
these
yes. Now
theories
I
and whatever, but
remember. Yeah, like I never felt like laughing, smiling. It was not a normal thing because I used to be so stressed out. You could just tell. I could tell even looking at my pictures from before. And
yeah.
after I quit, even in the pandemic, I'm like, okay, I'm just laughing at this picture and smiling on this one. But the other ones, I could just see that pain because I was just carrying that burden without even knowing it. I don't think I ever identified myself as somebody who was going through burnout, but I never knew what life was like without that because I just lived in that forever, like just being in certain kind of water seeing through blue smoke. I mean, that's how you have seen the world forever. And when that smoke goes away, everything becomes clear. And you're like, wow, this is how it's supposed to look like. I never knew.
Yeah, and it's once you hindsight's 2020, and you're like, man,
Yeah.
thank goodness I made some changes. Good for you for making all those changes because the changes are like hard. That's change is really hard, especially when all the stuff you're describing, it's like you went against the grain of what the world is saying you should be doing, or even your family is implying. Like,
Mhm.
and it kind of if you look at it on the surface, you're like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to go through training and do this thing and get really good at it and then leave. But that's not the full
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And like, is it worth being depressed?
Yeah.
No, if it's
And I
not.
go back to I went to medical college when I was 20. And then I was like, okay, whenever I made the decision to go in medicine, I was teenage. So I was like, really,
Yeah.
a teenager version of me cannot decide how I'm going to like, this is enough. I can make another decision and make a choice as an adult now again, who is a parent as well, who is a wife, who has two little girls. I can adult version of me, like right now, can make decision again to live 10 years or 20 years of my life differently. Like the teenager version of me doesn't get to dictate whole life of me. That was
Mhm.
something which changed my perspective right away as well. I was like, oh, I get to choose again. And what would I like to choose?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't even most people never know exactly what they want to do, but like in medicine, it's like you gotta decide at such a young age and you're kind of like committing a really long period of time and even financially committing and it's a big lock-in. But so educating yourself is huge, whether it's in real estate or personal finances, either way, like in your finances, I think financial literacy is a
Yeah.
huge deal. Making a plan, having a team, we talked about that, and support and getting your mindset right. I know you've done some hard work on that. And if you feel like you don't have a good mindset, like that's coaching. Life coaches are fantastic for
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And having a values focus, which you've done, it's obvious that you're living in alignment with your values because you're happy. That's the end result of that. And I think when you mesh all those things together, that's where you have motivation to take action, like even if it's scary or hard work or big changes. And
Mhm.
it's clear you've done a good job with all that nice work with
But each
everything.
day is still scary whenever I decide to,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to be doing this. I'm like, really? It's going to be hard, but
Yeah, but
which
it's
are
good
hard.
hard. It's weird because you want everybody's like working to make life more comfortable. But
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, if I ask myself, do I actually want to live a comfortable life? No. Like I
Comfortable
would
doing,
rather
no. Yeah.
live a courageous life. Courage is more important to me than comfort.
Yeah.
But everybody's striving for comfort. So you have to remind yourself of that sometimes.